Just that 100-yard play.
Yeah. This is a mean-ass gun.
Yes, it's very fun to shoot. It really doesn't have as much kick as you expect.
I'm really surprised that the newsroom had something like this.
Hey, this is American Lawn Sale Fan, and haven't done a video in a while, so decided to do a quick review on a recent purchase I made. A replica of a Remington 1890 new model Army. It's made by Uberti and put out by Cimarron. Most of the Uberti clones and replicas that they make, generally speaking, they're going to come in either 45 long Colt, 440, and of course 357/38 special. Remington, when they every time they make a Remington clone, they seem to also offer a version that includes a second cylinder that is chambered for the 45 ACP. So it's nice to have a more conventional caliber for my revolver. So yes, it's not exactly historically accurate, but then again, when Remington did make this in 1890 or put it out, that's okay. They didn't come in 45 long Colt either. They were strictly made in 4440. So a little bit about the original Remington 1890 revolver. I don't know about you, but as a longtime fan of Western films and so forth, I've never seen this make an appearance in a Hollywood Western film. I've seen, certainly you've seen the Colt single action armies. You will see its predecessor, the Remington 1875 Army model, but you will certainly never see this. And so let's go into some comparisons. First of all, initially these only came in the 5.5 inch barrels or the 7.5. They did not come in the short 4 inch and 5/8 barrel length. So just to draw a comparison, this is obviously a clone, black powder clone of the single action Army, and this is the Remington. If you notice, the dimensions are pretty close, not too bad. I've even found that for the most part this one will fit in most leather holsters that were designed for something like this. There's a couple of differences to keep in mind when trying to use the various holsters. First and foremost is, of course, the grip shape is different. It's very, very Remington. Notice right here, the grip shape is a little more elongated as opposed to your standard single action Army. What this makes for is, as most of us know, it's when we use a single action Army, okay, is the thumb, the hammer is right there for your thumb, pull it back. Most of us are used to this. With this one, I kind of in some ways like it better. The balance is a little more forward heavy, but the hammer goes right to the edge of my thumb and kind of doesn't interfere, if you notice. So yes, these are both unloaded, but if you notice, there's no real hammer bite no matter where I choke up on the gun. Whereas this one, with the hammer fully cocked, for some people have found that it does kind of bite your hands unless you kind of lower it this way and wrap your pinky around. Both are comfortable. I do find this a little more easier to point and aim, just me personally. The other thing that's kind of odd is the ejection rod. Your ejection rod is on your left side, and you're going to slowly just kick out the shells this way. The Remington, for whatever reason, is kind of more, the ejection rod is more on this side, on the right side. So when you open the loading gate, it works the same, half cock notch, but you're kind of pushing it this way. Might make it easier for left-handers, but it does mean that you're going to be kind of moving your hand over here to eject the shells. Minor. In fact, the real only issue with this that I have is when it comes to finding holsters for it, I have found that that piece on the ejection rod will kind of be tight at the end when you put, if you got a really fitted leather holster, sometimes you'll find it's pretty tight in there because it's probably designed for something like this, where the ejection lever is kind of flush more along the barrel this way, as opposed to favoring the right side. Another point about this model, which is kind of interesting, the original 1890 Remington model, new Army, it was kind of, from what I understand, there's not a whole lot of information out there, but it was kind of an afterthought. Remington was actually going through hard financial difficulties, and they had a number of spare parts for their 1875. They just decided to kind of streamline the 1875, make it cheaper. They already had the parts, and they came out with this. The problem is that this didn't offer a whole lot more advantage to a Colt, which, let's assuming this is a Colt, it's not, but you get the point. It didn't really offer anything new or any kind of advantage to a Colt. Most believe it was more durable than a Colt for kind of an odd reason, and that's because if you notice, one thing that's different is whether you have a one-piece grip or you have a two-piece grip, the frame of the grip actually comes apart. Here, the grip is all one piece of steel. The only way to get to the inner workings is to pull the trigger guard off. So, as well as take the panels off to get to the mainspring and stuff. So it allowed for a more durable pistol. Also, the cylinder rod, as most people know, is right here. This is an old black powder, so there's a screw that you come for to pull the pin out. But the cylinder pin over here, interesting enough, is right here. And this whole metal piece actually holds the pin inside. It's a very long metal piece, and it's completely encased in steel housing. So theoretically, it made the gun a little more durable. One last thing I'm going to say on the gun itself, something I like, is most single actions, you look at the trigger right here, it's pretty thin. Not that it's a major issue because you're cocking the gun and it's just a light trigger pull. Here with the Remington, which was common, you've got a very, almost a modern, wide but contoured trigger. And it just allowed, what I found is just a very easy, nice pull, something that you can put your pad of your finger right there and just pull. This is a very, very accurate gun. Good job by Cimarron. Like I said, I was primarily using 45 ACP with the cylinder. Interesting thing about the cylinder is that you can't really see it, but what I'm going to show you or demonstrate to you is how do they do the 45 ACP cylinder. Well, they don't really do anything extra. It's not like the cylinder grips the rimless case at the back end. What it is there's a steel tube that's forged into the cylinder that stops right here, and it keeps the 45 ACP bullet from going any further. So you drop it in like normal, and there's a lining inside that stops right at the shell casing and holds it in, and that's what keeps the 45 ACP shell from moving any more forward, keeps it locked in place as well. I don't know if that makes a more accurate gun, but it really was accurate on the range. Like most single actions, it's kind of hard to see. I'm gonna move it over here. So you can see it's got a fixed sight, and yeah, theoretically you can slowly file this off to bring it to where you need to be. I've never filed off any of my sights. I've just kind of learned where they point. For example, this one is partially because the sight is a little more shorter, or a little shorter. I found that it pretty much point of aim is point of impact with this one. Actually kind of like this one. But with this one, because it's a little taller, no big deal. I find that you just allow the front sight to pop up just a little bit in between the groove, and you can, if your target is right there, you just kind of place the target right on top. Because if you move it too much, you're going to be shooting down. So no big deal. Just look for that little top front sight, which makes it easier to just, maybe I found it also easier just to point and find that front sight each time. But anyway, like I said, really great job by Cimarron. Just a really nice piece. Lockwork is nice, tight. If you notice, I mean, that cylinder's not going anywhere when it's locked up. Just a really great, fun, unique piece. Question is, why did I buy it? Well, I love single action revolvers, so why not? And I guess I've always been kind of intrigued by this pistol because it's kind of an unknown in the world of single actions. We've all heard of the Schofield and the single action armies and the Remington 1875, but we don't really hear anything about this one. There weren't that many made, and it really kind of fell off the map almost as soon as it was produced. But to me, it's just a very unique. I think the idea was to take the 1875 and streamline it. I think at the time and place they did a good job. If you know anything about the 1875, it had a extra webbing. I don't have an 1875, but got something close. It's the 1858 black powder cap and ball, but it kind of had something similar to this. It's a underneath webbing under the barrel, and gave it a good look, but it wasn't necessary. So they shaved it down so that it's no longer doing this webbing. They kept the grip the same, which aforementioned, I kind of like this better in terms of how it points as opposed to a single action army, but that's my taste. I've always kind of liked the artillery model, if you will, the 5.5 inch. It's just a nice balance between the cavalry model and the short barreled, and you know, I just always have appreciated the look of this gun, and so it's kind of neat to finally have a replica of it, and one done very well by like I said, Uberti, and then put out by Cimarron. So really great, really great pistol. Do the old thing where you load one, skip one, load four, pull the hammer back all the way, and guess what? You just lowered the hammer on an empty chamber. Even on the range, it's a good practice to get into. So anyway, that's all I got. God bless you and those you love.